What's up everybody, it's Technicians Tuesday, and this week we're going to start cutting out the transom. This cutout process is going to be a two-part series. Also, check the description because we will eventually link to a compiled and detailed how-to transom resource once we have finished the whole project. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and then stick around until the end of the video for a new contest. Now let's start cutting. We left a little bit of work back here whenever we cleaned off the transom, but it wasn't much, just 2 battery switches and this rat's nest of wiring. You're probably asking yourself why someone would locate their power and ground bus bars in the open just 6 inches off the deck of the boat, which is exactly what I was thinking, so we're just going to get rid of this entire mess. Originally we were thinking about cutting these boxes out, but looking at how they have been glassed in, we might end up leaving them here, but we'll cross that bridge later. We are also going to need to do something about the way the rigging is coming up out of the floor here. We leave our boat in the water all year round, so we can't leave this open like this to collect water in the bilge and drain the batteries down with the float switches running the bilge pump all the time. We knocked out the hooks on the back, took our hin plate off of the transom, and then pulled out the drain plug before starting to cut. Next, we are going to need to go around the boat and mark out where we are going to cut. Since we will be cutting the transom out from the back, we want to basically cut 2 inches in from the entire outside edge of the boat. So we will work our way around the hull, marking 2 inches in from each corner as well as the top inside edges. This way we can take a straight edge and go around the hull connecting our marks, giving us a good solid line to guide us as we cut out the major chunk of the transom. We want to make this cut to get us started and to be able to access the wood we are going to dig out. We'll use a pencil to make our marks on the transom, and then once we get everything marked out, we'll have a nice pattern around the transom like this. The next thing we need to do is to set the depth of our circular saw because we don't want to cut through the inside piece of glass as we work our way around the transom. We'll use the transom here to give us a reference point, and then we can make a test run on one of the upper sections to check the depth. Now before beginning to cut, you want to make sure you have some good airflow and a fan or two to blow the dust away from you as you cut. You'll also want some gloves and a good mask. You definitely don't want to be breathing this stuff in. We'll sink the saw in at the top, and then we can look through the hole that we made so we can make the adjustment to the depth of the saw before we move on. Once we've got the depth correct, we can start to work our way around our guidelines with the circular saw. Don't worry about cutting over the lines on the corners. We'll be covering all of that up with glass in the end. Another good thing to have around is some shop air. You want to be blowing the fiberglass dust off of yourself periodically throughout this process. It's a pretty itchy project to undertake. But we'll just continue to work our way around the transom, moving our fans with us as we cut along our lines with the circular saw, until we make it all the way around the transom, leaving us with a nice, clean cut all the way around the transom. Now before going any further though, you'll want to put something down under the back of the boat to catch all of the rot that is going to come out once we pull this outside piece of glass off. We'll take our pry bar set and begin to work the bars in between the outside piece of glass and the wood on the inside. The glass and the wood will begin to separate, and we'll be able to get in between the layers and work our way around the transom, peeling this outside piece of glass off of the transom. If you don't plan on raising your transom up, you can save a ton of work by saving this piece of glass and then cleaning the backside of it off and then reinstalling it whenever you're glassing up the transom after replacing the core. Which brings us to the first of many tedious tasks that are involved in replacing a transom, and that is to get all of this rotten wood off of the back of the boat. There are a couple of ways you can do this. You can go around with a hammer and the pry bar and chunk it off piece by piece, but that will probably end up taking about 3 months to do, especially in places like this that are not really that rotten. The way I like to do it is to get a couple of spots started with the pry bar and get down to the inside piece of glass like this. Then we are going to take a hammer drill with a flat blade on it like this. Then we can work chunks off fairly quickly. We'll even take our circular saw and run strips up the transom so that we can pull off pieces of the wood in big chunks that we will knock loose with our hammer drill and a pry bar. After we've got our cuts up the transom, and you can even do horizontal lines if you want, the more the better really. It will just break up the strength of the wood and make it easier to come off. But then we can take our hammer drill and just work our way around the transom, chunking off the rotten wood and getting that under piece of glass exposed. You'll find that the average transom is basically 5 parts. The inside glass, a piece of wood, a middle piece of glass, another chunk of wood, and then the outside glass. We will basically continue to work our way across the transom, and it's sometimes easier to peel off the first piece of wood and then pull off the second piece after that. We'll end up driving the hammer drill under the wood and then taking the pry bar to work each chunk off until we can tear the pieces off the transom, getting down to our goal of exposing that first piece of glass on the inside. Eventually we will get there and be left with all of this exposed glass and even some nails that were left here in the glass that were supposed to help keep the transom together when it was first put together. This gets us about halfway through with the demolition portion of cutting out the transom. We still need to dig out all of the wood that goes around the outside edges, as well as the inside deck portion that they put in whenever they did the transom. Which brings us to the new comm test. We're still working on the prize for this, but some of you have probably noticed that there is usually a random view of a boat ride at the end of each video every week. And we were wondering how well everybody knows their boats. So we figured we'd turn it into a contest and see who can guess what kind of boat it is in the comments section below. Remember, we can always be reached at bornagainboating.com. Thank you for hanging out. Enjoy your Tuesday night, and we'll see you next week.